Some moments divide your life into a before and an after. For me, that moment arrived on a rain-soaked Tuesday evening when Marcus Chen collapsed on the basketball court. His ankle twisted at an angle that made my stomach tighten. But it wasn't the injury that changed everything. It was what he whispered to me 3 hours later in his apartment, his dark eyes vulnerable in a way I had never seen before. "Stay with me tonight, please. I don't want to be alone. I'm Tyler Bennett. And this is the story of how one night turned into something that lasted far longer than either of us expected." The gym smelled like sweat, rubber, and possibility. Our community league team, the Downtown Drifters, had been practicing for the regional championships for months. Basketball had been my escape since high school, a steady rhythm of movement and competition that kept my mind focused and my heart protected. Marcus had joined the team 8 months earlier after transferring from Seattle, carrying a quiet confidence that caught my attention immediately. He was 27, 3 years older than me, with a presence that filled a room without ever asking for attention. His jump shot was smooth, his defensive plays sharp and precise. Off the court, he was reserved, offering small smiles and thoughtful comments that made you lean in just to catch every word. I'd been drawn to him from the start, but I kept that feeling buried beneath layers of friendly professionalism. I'd learned the hard way that developing crushes on teammates, especially ones who seemed straight, only led to heartache and uncomfortable locker room moments. So I kept my distance, admired quietly, pretended my pulse didn't speed up whenever he passed me the ball. "Bennett, heads up." Marcus's voice cut through my thoughts as the basketball sailed toward me. I caught it reflexively and pivoted, sinking a three-pointer that swished clean through the net. "Nice shot," he said, jogging over with that half-smile that did terrible things to my focus. His dark hair was damp with sweat, his gray practice jersey clinging to shoulders I absolutely was not staring at. "Thanks." "Your assist was perfect," I replied, keeping my tone casual as I wiped my face with a towel. Coach Davis, a retired semi-pro with a whistle that could wake the dead, clapped his hands. "All right, gentlemen. Let's run the pick and roll one more time. Chen, Bennett, cheer up. Show the others how it's done." Marcus and I had developed an almost instinctive connection on the court. He knew when I'd cut left. I knew when he'd drive right. Our plays flowed with an ease that made the rest of the team jealous and made Coach Davis beam with pride. We took our positions at the top of the key. Marcus dribbled, controlled and deliberate. I moved to set the screen. Our bodies briefly closed as he used my stance to shake his defender. The contact sent a spark through me that I quickly pushed aside. He drove toward the basket, and that's when everything went wrong. The gym floor always had a damp spot near the paint. Someone had spilled water during the break, and even though someone had tried to clean it, a thin slick remained. Marcus's foot hit that exact spot as he planted for a layup. His ankle rolled with a sharp, sickening crack that echoed through the suddenly silent gym. He went down hard, his cry of pain slicing through me. "Marcus." I was beside him before I even realized I'd moved, dropping to my knees. His face had gone pale, his jaw tight as he clutched his ankle. "Don't move it," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Years of first aid training kicked in, drowning out the panic. "Coach, call an ambulance. Someone grab ice." The team rushed around us, but I barely noticed. My world narrowed to Marcus, to the way his breath came in short. Controlled bursts as he fought the pain, the way his hand had instinctively reached out to grab mine, squeezing. Hard enough that the force of his pain seemed to echo through my bones stayed with me. "It's bad, isn't it?" he asked, voice tight. "We'll get you checked out," I said, careful not to lie, but not wanting to scare him either. The angle of his ankle already suggested a severe sprain, at the very least possibly worse. "Just breathe. I'm right here." His eyes met mine, and something unguarded passed between us. Something raw. Something neither of us had words for. His fingers stayed locked around mine, even as the paramedics arrived. Even as they examined him, stabilized his leg, and prepared him for transport. "Will you come with me?" he whispered as they lifted him onto the stretcher. "To the hospital," of course I said without thinking twice. "I'm not going anywhere." The emergency room was a fluorescent blur of waiting and worry. I sat in a stiff plastic chair outside his examination room. Still in my sweaty practice gear, my phone buzzing nonstop with messages from teammates. How's Marcus? Any news? Keep us updated. I answered everything on autopilot. 3 long hours crawled by before a doctor finally stepped out. Severe sprain, no fracture? Thank God, but he'd need to stay completely off it for at least a week, followed by careful physical therapy, crutches, pain meds, strict rest. When they finally let me in, Marcus sat on the exam table with his ankle wrapped tightly, a small prescription bag beside him, and a frustrated helplessness in his expression that I'd never seen before. "Hey," I said softly. "How are you feeling?" "Like an idiot," he muttered, dragging a hand through his hair. "One stupid slip, and I'm out for weeks." The championship doesn't matter," I cut in gently. "Your health does. We'll figure everything else out." He looked up, and something shifted his composure, cracking just enough for me to see the fear beneath. "Tyler, I don't think I can manage alone. My apartment's a 3rd-floor walk-up. No elevator. No family nearby. I can't." "You'll stay with me," I said before I could overthink it. "My place is ground level. Guest room's ready." No arguments. Relief washed over his features, followed by hesitation. "Are you sure?" "I don't want to impose." "You're not imposing?" I said firmly. "You're accepting help from a friend." The ride to his apartment was quiet, Marcus staring out the window with an expression I couldn't quite read. I helped him up the 3 long flights of stairs, his weight leaning heavily into my shoulder, his jaw tight with every painful hop. Inside, we packed a quick bag, clothes, toiletries, laptop, whatever he'd need for a few days. "Something else," he said quietly as I zipped the duffel. He nodded toward his nightstand drawer. Inside was a framed photograph Marcus with an older couple, the 3 of them smiling against the Seattle skyline. "My parents," he said softly. "They passed away 2 years ago. Car accident. I moved here too. Start over, I guess. I still talk to them sometimes. Probably sounds stupid." "It doesn't sound stupid at all," I said, placing the photo gently in the bag. "Grief doesn't follow a schedule." He nodded, something fragile flickering across his face. "Thanks for understanding. Most people just tell me to move on." "Most people are wrong," I said, earning a small, genuine smile from him. By the time we reached my apartment, it was well past midnight. Marcus was exhausted, the pain medication tugging him towards sleep. I settled him into the guest room, a simple space, with a soft bed, a warm lamp, and windows overlooking a courtyard garden I'd forgotten to take care of for months. "If you need anything, I'm right across the hall," I told him, adjusting his pillows and elevating his ankle. "Seriously, water, snacks, meds, whatever you need." "Tyler," he said as I turned to leave, reaching out to brush his fingers lightly against my wrist. "Thank you, really. I know I'm interrupting your life." "You're not interrupting anything," I said, though my skin burned where he touched me. "Get some rest." But when I finally lay in my own bed, sleep wouldn't come. The awareness of Marcus just across the hall hurt, vulnerable, trusting. Me felt like carrying something fragile and precious. I told myself it was just concern, just responsibility. But I'd never been good at lying to myself. Dawn crept through my curtains far too soon. I'd managed maybe 3 hours of restless sleep, my mind spinning with logistics and tightly packed emotions. I dragged myself to the kitchen, half awake, measuring coffee grounds, when I heard the awkward rhythm of crutches on hardwood, followed by a muffled curse. Marcus stood in the doorway, hair mussed unsteady on his crutches, wearing gray sweatpants and a white t-shirt that had absolutely no right to look that good. "What are you doing up?" I asked, moving toward him instinctively. "You should have called if you needed me." "I can manage," he insisted, the stubborn tilt in his jaw warning me he was about to do something reckless. "I just need to." His crutch snagged on the corner of the rug. He stumbled, and I lunged forward, catching him before he could put weight on his injured ankle. We ended up pressed together, my arms around his waist, his hands gripping my shoulders, both of us frozen in the unexpected closeness. "Okay. New rule," I said, my voice rougher than I intended, painfully aware of the warmth of him, the clean scent of his soap, the way his breath hitched. "You ask for help. Pride doesn't heal injuries. I'm not great at asking for help, he admitted quietly, not stepping away. Then you're about to get a lot of practice, I said, guiding him carefully to the kitchen table. Sit. I'll get whatever you need. He sat, something complicated flickering in his expression. I wanted coffee, he said softly, and maybe breakfast. I just don't want to be a burden. Keep using that word, I said, turning back to the coffee maker. I don't think it means what you think it means. Scrambled eggs? I make a mean breakfast burrito, I said. That sounds amazing. We slipped into an easy rhythmy cooking. Him sitting at the table pretending to check emails on his phone while actually watching me with an intensity I could feel like a physical touch. I kept the conversation going to fill the comfortable silence, asking him about his work as a graphic designer, his thoughts on the team's chances once he healed, his favorite foods so I could stock the kitchen right. With each answer, each small detail, the careful distance between us seemed to shrink. You didn't have to take me in, he said suddenly, as I set a loaded breakfast burrito in front of him. You barely know me outside of basketball. I sat across from him with my own plate, choosing my words with care. Maybe that's true. But sometimes you know someone in the ways that matter. You show up to every practice early. You stay late to help the younger guys with their form. You listen more than you talk. And you order pineapple on pizza, which is objectively the correct choice no matter what anyone says. He laughed. Genuine, surprised, warm. You noticed all that? I notice everything about you, I thought. But instead I smiled. I'm observant. Comes with being a good teammate. His eyes met mine, searching. Is that what we are? Teammates. The question hung between us, heavy with meaning. I wasn't brave enough to unpack. We're friends, I said carefully. At least, I hope we are. Yeah, he murmured, something like disappointment passing across his face. Friends. We ate quietly after that, but the word echoed in my mind. Something between us had shifted. The sunlight spilling across Marcus's dark hair highlighted his features. And I found myself memorizing the moment, the easy warmth of shared breakfast. The way his presence filled my home in a way that felt startlingly right. After we finished eating, I helped Marcus back to the guest room. He insisted on working from his laptop despite my suggestion to rest. I left him to it and returned to my own small office to tackle my design projects, though my focus was shot. Around noon, I checked on him and found him asleep, his laptop still open beside him. His face was relaxed in a way it never was when he was awake. I gently moved the computer, pulled a light blanket over him, and stood there a moment longer than I should have, watching him breathe. Friends, I reminded myself firmly. He needed a friend, not someone losing control of his feelings. But when I closed his door and returned to my desk, I knew the truth. Whatever I felt for Marcus Chen had crossed the line from admiration into something deeper. Something both exhilarating and terrifying. The question was what I was supposed to do about it. 3 days into our unexpected cohabitation, I'd learned more about Marcus than I had in 8 months of practices. I learned that he hummed off-key when he thought no one was listening.